Hey, what's up folks? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well. And what you're looking at is the new Phantom 4 Pro from DJI. And what we're going to do is test it against what I consider to be the best drone ever made, the Mavic Pro. Now, interestingly, both drones actually share a lot of common features and technology, but there's certainly a big design difference. As you can see side by side, the Mavic Pro is absolutely tiny. One of the great design aspects of the drone itself is since it has a collapsible, transformable design, it only measures around 83 millimeters in terms of width and about 200 millimeters in length, versus the Phantom 4 Pro is the same size as the other Phantom drones, measuring about 350 by 350 millimeters. Additionally, with that super compact controller that comes with the Mavic, it's definitely going to be the more portable, carry with you anywhere you go option. With that being said, let's actually talk about the new features on the Phantom 4 Pro that you don't get with, let's say, the Mavic or even with the standard Phantom 4. Now, even though the Phantom 4 Pro looks pretty much identical to the regular model, internally the construction has completely changed. You're going to see a lot of titanium and magnesium alloy parts, which is actually going to improve a lot of aspects when it comes to the flight dynamics as well as the battery life. And now you're looking at about 30 minutes of flight time versus the Mavic Pro is around 27 minutes. In real world circumstances, my flight time averaged around 28 minutes with the Phantom 4 Pro, and I got around 25 minutes with the Mavic Pro. Now, when it comes to flight dynamics, performance, and hover stability, both are actually really solid in terms of having minimal hover deviation. I would say that the Phantom 4 Pro is a little bit more solid than the Mavic, but the Mavic is definitely doing an awesome job, especially in tripod mode. But when it comes to the performance aspect of things, in sports mode, we do have a higher slight top speed on the P4 Pro, about 45 miles an hour or 72 kilometers an hour versus 40 miles an hour on the Mavic. So slight performance edge on the P4 Pro there. Overall, everything else pretty much feels the same. Both drones are really easy to fly in pretty much all the different modes that you can choose from. Now, moving along, one of the key highlight features on the Phantom 4 Pro has to be the 5-direction obstacle avoidance system. Now, the Mavic Pro, just like the original Phantom 4, does have a pair of obstacle avoidance high-resolution cameras at the front end of the drone. But if you take a look at the Phantom 4 Pro, you'll see that there's not only a pair of stereoscopic cameras at the front, but there's also a pair of cameras at the back of the unit. And on the left and right side, you'll also find a pair of infrared sensors. So not only will the drone sense obstacles coming from the front, back, sides, it'll also detect different elevation changes thanks to the vision positioning systems as well as the ultrasonic sensors that you have located at the bottom of the drone. So in pretty much every aspect besides the top of the drone, you're pretty much covered and safe from all potential hazards in all the relevant angles, whether the drone is flying autonomously or in manual mode. Now, I want to emphasize the fact that even though we have all these sensors and all this technology to keep the drone safe and up in the air, that doesn't mean that it can never crash or never come across any kind of accident scenario. The key thing of being safe up in the air with any drone or any flying platform is to use common sense, go in open areas where there's less hazards, and you should be fine. Of course, having all these sensors to protect the drone is going to decrease the overall likelihood of getting into any kind of crash scenario. Now, if you take a look at the controller that comes with the Phantom 4 Pro, I actually got the one with the built-in 1080p display, and the display is super nice. The colors are crazy vibrant and it's very bright. It's 1000 CDM squared, which is 2 to 3 times brighter than most of your tablets and your smartphones. So it's great for flying outdoors. And plus, since it's built in Android operating system with the integrated controller, it's a nice convenient package. The controller itself is pretty much the same as most of the Phantom drone controllers, but you do have an HDMI output, which certainly can be handy if you want to output to an external display or monitor, or even use a pair of DJI goggles, which are going to be available pretty soon. Now, lastly, let's talk about the camera specs and features that the Phantom 4 Pro comes with compared to what you have with the Mavic Pro. Now, the imaging sensor on the Mavic Pro is about half the size as what you find with the Phantom 4 Pro. So you have a 1-inch CMOS chip with 20 megapixels on the P4 Pro versus a half-inch 12 megapixel sensor on the Mavic. Furthermore, the lens is also different. You have a 28 millimeter lens on the Mavic versus a 24 4mm lens on the P4 Pro, which is going to resolve a wider 84-degree field of view versus a 78.8 field of view on the Mavic. So with that wider perspective, you don't actually get any real distortion, which is really nice. And when it comes to the low light performance, you have maximum ISO range of up to 6400 versus 3200, and also double the frames per second when it comes to the still frame burst mode, 14 frames per second versus 7 frames per second. Now, obviously, when it comes to 4K video on the P4 Pro, you have full 4K resolution at up to 60 frames per second, which is pretty darn incredible, versus the Mavic Pro does have 4K for 30 frames per second. And in full HD mode, you actually have 120 frames per second, kind of slow motion mode on the Phantom 4 Pro, versus on the Mavic, you're going to have to bump down the resolution to 720p if you want 120 frames per second, because in 1080p, the maximum frames per second is about 96. In addition to that, the maximum bitrate is also significantly higher on the P4 Pro. You have up to 100 megabits per second at that 4K resolution, versus the Mavic manages about 60 megabits per second. Now, let's take a look at the side-by-side 4K video footage, so that way you guys can see the difference between the two. But really, on that, guys, that's really it. As you can see, the Phantom 4 Pro and the Mavic Pro are very, very feature rich. There's certainly a lot of features that we didn't really go over in this video because we don't want to make things too long. Eventually, we will have a full in-depth review for the Phantom 4 Pro, so definitely be in the lookout for that video on the channel. But besides, other than that, definitely let me know which drone has the best options for you, whether you like the compact overall form factor of the Mavic, and it's definitely a very capable little drone by itself, or would you rather have the advanced imaging technology and smart obstacle avoidance system integrated in the Phantom 4 Pro? But besides that, give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and we'll see you later. Take care.